All right. I'm Peter Alessandria, and for the next 90 minutes, I invite you to be bigger than you think you are. If you're new here, welcome. If you've been here before, welcome back. We're going to jump into our agenda for this evening. As always, so we're going to start with some announcements, then we're going to have an opportunity for people to introduce themselves or share a victory from the last week. We have a recommended reading. I have a new affirmation for you, affirmation of the day today. We're going to listen to an audiobook excerpt from my book, Be Bigger Than You Think You Are. We'll have our topic discussion, take a brief 5-minute break, and then we'll come back to work on the assignment and do any questions and answers that you guys might have. As usual, our first announcement is I have an offer code for you. If you don't have a copy of the book, or if you would like an additional copy of the book for maybe a holiday gift idea, you can get 20% off using the offer code BOOK20 at checkout at bebiggertoday.com/book. I will personally sign that book to whoever you want me to. The audiobook is available for pre-order at $9.99. It's 9.5 hours long. It will be finished soon. I can't say exactly when, but in the next few weeks. And both the paperback and the audiobook come with a full money-back guarantee. So if you don't love it, you just let me know and I'll send you your money back. No questions asked. Money-back guarantee. But I know you're going to love it. And you can get that at bebiggertoday.com/bookstore. We have merch. Again, a great place to do your holiday gift shopping is at bebiggertoday.com/merch and take 20% off t-shirts and hats with that offer code at checkout. And I am available for one-on-one coaching if you're an artist, a photographer, a creative person, or just an average person who wants to get going on some things. Or if you have a business or work for a company and like me to come in and talk to your sales team, your management team on how they could be bigger than they think they are, I'm your guy. Contact me through the website. We'll set that up. All right, so here's our recommended reading for this evening. So if you're not familiar, Neale Donald Walsch in actually 1995 wrote Conversations with God, Book 1, which turned into a trilogy. So there's books 1, 2, and 3. And that was a book that was very instrumental in me when I began my spiritual journey, my self-awareness trip. And recently came back to these books on Audible as audiobooks, listening to them. Very, very helpful. There were 3 books in the original trilogy, and then there were 2 more books that came out right after that. And then there is actually a book 4 that came out a couple of years ago. And then there's 2 or 3 other books. All the Conversations with God books are just amazing. I highly recommend them. I'll mention the other books next week. But these first 3 books, you can actually get them usually bundled together, get all 3 in one package, or you can get them online that way as an audiobook. So if you go to Audible, if you have a membership on Audible, if you just go to Amazon and select the audiobook, they usually have books 1, 2, and 3 in one. So you only pay one price, you get all 3 books. Really, really amazing stuff. So this was life-changing for me and for millions of people. These books have been translated all around the world. So I highly recommend this for your spiritual reading. And our affirmation of the day for today is, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be, and I have the ability to move on when I'm ready. All right, so that's an affirmation for you guys. Great to say first thing in the morning, actually great to say throughout the day, especially when something comes up that's challenging you or that you feel is an obstacle in some way. To affirm that I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. I mean, that was new for me to even think that. You know, it was always, well, this is not right. This is not where I'm supposed to be. This is not how things are supposed to be going. To be in resistance to what is created a lot of unmanageability in my life. So by affirming that I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be and that when I'm ready, I have the ability to move on, frees up some energy. You know, when we're in opposition to something, opposition, you probably heard this said before, What we resist persists. Say that 5 times fast. And so what we're in opposition to, it stays stuck in our life. It becomes, we're feeding it. We're giving it energy through our negative attention. So saying something like, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be, or saying, the AA Big Book has a little prayer in there that acceptance is the answer to all my problems today. Being in a place of acceptance rather than resistance is what we're after here, because when we're in acceptance, then we can move on. When we're in resistance to something, we keep it in place. We're feeding it our energy. We're actually giving it our mental attention and our focus, and that keeps it stuck in our lives. So, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be, and I have the ability to move on when I'm ready. So this is an opportunity for folks who want to either introduce themselves or share a victory from the last week. This is your chance. You can unmute yourselves. I'm going to try to unpin my video. Anybody want to share a victory from this week? Looks like everybody's been here before, so we don't have new people, but anybody want to update us on what's going on?
Hey, Peter.
Dee Dee.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I just want to say that was a delightfully refreshing exercise to have permission to look at things that I might like and appreciate about myself, and to have the courage to say it in a group, to be witnessed and actually to be recorded. That was a real stretch for me. And I got to reflect with another person who comes to this group. And what we found was more and more things came to mind. What they found was more and more things were coming to mind that they liked. And I really loved hearing that. So thank you so much.
Awesome. Woohoo! Love it.
Yay.
Thank you, Dee Dee. Looks like Barbara's ready to go.
Yeah, I'm ready to go. I didn't think, it's okay. I know you know Jennifer. Jennifer finally had that job interview. It was actually today, but last night she was so nervous, and she doesn't want to hear anything from her mom or anything like that. But I knew I wanted to say something, and I did think of you, and I did say I wanted something to help. So I said, you have control over your responses, not them. Go for it. Okay. And I'm sure that's a lot, to do with you. And she called me, a little while ago, and the interview went great.
All right. I only have one thing to say. Woohoo!
I know great. She's got another interview again tomorrow, but I am thinking of one more word. I'm just, I can only say a few words, or else she's going to turn me off. So I'll get some words of wisdom by the end of this to say to her.
All right, and for people who don't know, Jennifer is Barbara's daughter. Great. Good job, Barb. All right, so we will move ahead then. So we are going to now the topic. So we are moving on, guys. We're on to chapter 3 in the book. And this topic is true power. Now, actually, chapter 3, there's 2 parts to chapter 3. There's true power and true happiness. We're going to spend a couple of weeks on true power, and then we'll get to the happiness part. Believe it or not, they go hand in hand. So we're going to do the next thing. We're going to do the audiobook excerpt. So this is from my book. If you have a copy, this is chapter 3, and it starts on page, if you want to read along, on page 73. Now, again, it might be the text might be a little different. I have been doing some tweaking on the audiobook, but if you want to read along, it starts on page 73. So sit tight, and I'll get that going for us. Chapter 3. True Power and True Happiness. Power is the ultimate aphrodisiac. Henry Kissinger. Happiness is wanting what you get. Dale Carnegie. Power tends to be a big deal in most human societies. Some people will tell you knowledge is power. Others say power corrupts. In physics, power is the ability to use energy to do or change something. When the average person talks about power, they may be thinking of political power, economic power, or military power. Most of my life, I thought power was about getting other people to do what I wanted them to do. In our own lives, whether it's our boss, the government, or even the weather, it can seem like something outside of us has power over us. True power. What I will be calling true power is something entirely different. In the last chapter, we said responsibility can be read as respondability, that is, the ability to respond. This means we can choose who we are and how we're being in relation to all the events and circumstances of our lives. We also said responsibility is about taking ownership of all our thoughts, feelings, words, and actions, and that if we don't own something, we condone it. When we take responsibility, we're saying we caused something. If we cause something, we usually have the ability to change or control it, and thus have power over it. In contrast, by denying responsibility for something, we're saying we can't change or control it, and thus have no power over it. This is fine for the things we really don't cause. But as we saw in the last chapter, many of us deny responsibility for things we do cause, such as our own thoughts and feelings. By denying responsibility for something we did cause, we render ourselves powerless to change it. Likewise, when we blame someone or something else for what we think, feel, say, or do, we're in effect giving that person or thing the power to decide our internal state for us. Of course, we can't really do this. Yet each of us in our own way has believed that our actions and reactions were determined by what someone or something else was doing to us. Accordingly, I see true power as the means by which we exercise control over our internal state of being. It's the process whereby we consciously decide who and what we want to be in any situation. For this reason, I define true power as the ability to consciously choose and/or change our thoughts, feelings, words, and actions. Now, 3 important points arise from this definition. 1, no one but us can choose and/or change what we think, feel, say, or do. This means no one and nothing outside of us has power over us. 2, we can't choose or change anyone else's thoughts, feelings, words, or actions. This means we're powerless over other people. And 3, our thoughts, feelings, words, and actions are the only 4 things we need power over to create the lives that we want. Let's look at each of these in turn. Number 1, we spent a lot of time in the last chapter looking at how there's no causal link between what's happening outside of us and what we think or feel inside. Information about external events must first pass through the internal filter of who we think we are before we can react to it. This internal filtering process breaks any causal connection between what's happening outside and what we think or feel inside. So while the external event or circumstance may be the stimulus for us to act, the nature and substance of that reaction is always about us. This means that anything outside of us, including other people, is essentially powerless over us. Number 2, one of the biggest moments of relief in my own life came when I started attending Codependence Anonymous meetings in the late 1990s. Footnote 9. For anyone not familiar with codependency, a couple of books to get you started are Codependent No More, How to Stop Controlling Others and Start Caring for Yourself by Melody Beatty, and Facing Codependence by Pia Melody. The Codependence Anonymous website is also a good place to get information. Visit www.coda.org. Back to the text. The written materials for the first step in that program said I was powerless over others. Up until that time, in one way or another, I felt responsible for other people's actions and reactions, at least as those things related to me. Needless to say, this created a lot of stress and at times profound confusion and unhappiness in my life. Today I'm aware that what other people think, feel, say, and do is always about them and never about me. I am accountable for my actions and behaviors, but I'm never responsible for someone else's actions or reactions. I also finally understand that I can't change other people. Only they can change themselves. Number 3, we are the creators of our lives. We do this by making choices and decisions. As we said in the last chapter, every choice or decision we make has a consequence. It's the sum total of our choices and their corresponding consequences that form the content of our lives. Thus, by consciously and deliberately using our true power every day, we can create the lives we want. The power of choice. To choose is to decide amongst alternatives. Yet to make an effective choice, we have to know what we want. Thus, the first step in exercising our true power is to be clear on our goals and priorities. Equally important, however, is that we believe it's possible for us to achieve those things. The biggest obstacle many of us face in terms of realizing our dreams is we don't believe it's possible for us to have them. We either think it will be too hard to realize them or that we don't deserve them. All the negative thoughts and beliefs about ourselves that we discussed in the first 2 chapters tend to reinforce one or both of these beliefs. The end result is many people don't even try to get the things they really want. They either give up entirely or settle for something less than what would make their hearts sing. Thus, for those of us who think this way, we have to change what we think we're capable of and/or what we think we deserve from life. In short, we have to change who we think we are in relation to those things. I'm probably not the first person to say if you can believe it, you can achieve it. But I will also say it may take some work to get to the point where we actually believe it's possible to achieve what we want. That's why being aware of how we see ourselves is so important. In fact, if you want to know what you currently think you're capable of or deserve from life, look at what you already have. What you see says, "This is who I think I am." Remember what we said in Chapter 1. It's impossible to act in a way that's inconsistent with our predominant thoughts and beliefs about ourselves. This includes having or not having what it is we really want. As we also said in the first chapter, we may need additional skills, training, or resources to get to where we want to be. Pure positive affirmations, while helpful, may not be enough. But we also said we probably won't even attempt to go after those things if we have a pessimistic outlook about ourselves or about life in general. In terms of pursuing our dreams in life, I'll speak later about breaking down our goals into small, easily achievable steps. This makes our progress more obvious and helps reinforce a sense of success. But it's still up to each of us to take the actions necessary to get to where we want to be. The idea that we deserve to have our goals and dreams in life is one of the main points of this book. Seeing myself as deserving and worthy has been a long and at times difficult process. You may already be there. But for those of us who aren't, we each have to discover our own path to realizing our sense of worth and value. If you're like me, you may end up finding out you're the only one who ever doubted those things. Other people probably already see and love the wonderful, worthy person that is you. So, I actually want to talk a little bit about some of the things that I covered in there. Let me just pull this back up. So this is a really, 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 really important concept, this concept of true power, because this is where we create our lives. See, most of my life, I was like a billiard ball, reacting to everything that was going on around me, blaming everybody else for how I felt, and feeling resentful of everyone and everything else when things didn't work out. See, it was always somebody else's fault that my life was not working. All right? Now, it's not to say that the other people in my life are angels. They have a part in what happens, just like I have a part in what happens. But as we talked about the last few weeks, when we take responsibility for our thoughts, feelings, words, and actions, that means that nobody's making me feel anything. They're doing what they're doing, and what they're doing may be inappropriate. All right? We're not condoning somebody else's bad behavior. We're not making excuses for other people. But we don't have to give our power away in those situations anymore. See, the thing I would do is somebody would be acting inappropriately, or at least what I thought was inappropriate, and then I'd get all resentful, or I'd get afraid, or I would get revengeful, seek retaliation. I would be defensive. So in chapter 5, I think, I talk all about defensiveness. Defensiveness has been a huge block to me having healthy relationships with other people. And I give some examples in the book about how being defensive in relationships with like clients and stuff like that has kind of messed up my life a little bit. So the point is, they may or may not be acting appropriately. All right? We're not making excuses if they are acting inappropriately. But we still, despite whatever they're doing, we still get to decide how we feel. We still get to decide, we still get to choose. We have the power to choose how we're going to respond in that situation. All right? And when I take my power back, I take responsibility. Whatever my response is, I take responsibility for that, and I stop blaming everybody else for what I think, feel, say, and do. Now, this is not easy, all right? I'm still challenged by this almost every day in one way or another. I still want to react to the world as if it's the world's fault that I feel the way I feel. But the thing that's different, I think, about what I'm saying, and I've been reading self-help books for 30 years, I've been doing workshops and all kinds of stuff for almost 30 years. I've never heard anybody say it this way, and the way that I say it is, how I respond or react is dependent on how I see myself in that situation, who I think I am. See, if somebody's acting inappropriately, but the way I see myself is as somebody who can take care of himself in that situation, then I'm going to have one response. On the other hand, if I feel really threatened or vulnerable, and those feelings are not necessarily warranted in that situation, it's really me based on my past, my habitual way of seeing myself, I'm going to react in a different way. Now, again, this is not throwing common sense out the window. If we're in the middle of the street and a car is coming at us, it's probably good to get out of the way of the car. And there are people in our lives who are like, actually what I used to say, I'm not going to say who I said this with respect to, but there was one person in my life that I always used to say, if I'm tired of getting hit by the train, it's up to me to get off the tracks. Because what I would do is I would stand in the middle of the tracks and say, no, train, stop. No, train, do it this way. Do it that way. And I'd get run over every time by that train. And so taking responsibility, using my power, means that I get out of the way of the train. I'm not going to try to change that train anymore. All right, I'm just going to get out of the way, and I'm going to just stand there, and I'm going to feel the breeze. I'm going to feel that cool breeze as the train goes by me and into somebody else's life. All right. Now, again, we have to. I've had to learn. I mean, in the last 30 years, I've had to learn how to take care of myself in my relationships with other people because other people don't always act appropriately. Sometimes other people are jerks, or worse. So I've had to learn how to take care of myself. But the more I learn how to take care of myself, and I have a whole thing in chapter 7 in the book. It's a good-looking book, don't you think? I have a whole thing in chapter 7 in the book on how to set boundaries, how to have healthy boundaries with other people. And I'm going to give you a little preview right now. Boundaries are the primary way that we take care of ourselves in our relationships with other people. But I didn't know anything about boundaries. I knew a lot about walls, and I knew a lot about using anger as a wall. I knew a lot about how to judge other people, make them wrong, condemn them, gossip about them, because I felt powerless and I didn't know how else to take care of myself. I knew how to be defensive. I knew how to be vengeful. But I didn't know how to have a healthy boundary with somebody. So the more I've learned how to have healthy boundaries, the more I'm able to take care of myself in my relationships. So I begin to see myself differently. When I see myself differently, I react to the other person differently or the situation. As I shared last week and probably a few times before that, most days I still see myself as that little 6-year-old kid who didn't know how to take care of himself, who was powerless, and that made the world a very scary place. That made the world very threatening. And that's why it was so, defensiveness is one way that I tried to take care of myself because I didn't know how else to do it. Now, there's a whole story, I have a whole discussion about defensiveness, as I mentioned, along with things like judgment and anger and all, things that we might call character defects of character. Later in the book, so I'm not going to get into that. But what I want to talk about tonight is what you heard in the reading. So the way I'm defining true power, and now most of the world, when we hear people talk about power, it's usually, for most of my life, I thought power was getting other people to do what I wanted them to do. And that's not power. That's coercion. That's manipulation. That's, it could be abuse. It could be bullying. But that's not true power. The problem is most of us are not aware of that. So, and I also, for most of my life, I thought other people had power over me, meaning they could make me do something against my will. When I walk around in my life thinking that other people or situations or whatever can make me do something against my will, where I can't protect myself or I don't have any say in how things are going to go, and then I feel, naturally, this is a natural response. A natural response to seeing myself that way is to feel threatened, to feel vulnerable, to feel angry, to feel defensive. And that's how I've lived my life most of the last 30 years. And what I see now is the reason I felt that way was not because of what the world was doing to me. The reason I felt that way was because of how I saw myself, who I thought I was. And that's great news. Doesn't sound like it perhaps, but trust me, it's really great news because I often can't change the situation. I can't change the outer circumstances. I certainly can't change other people. But I can always change how I see myself. And changing how I see myself in a conscious and deliberate way, that's the essence of true power. Changing how I feel in the moment, that's true power. See, most of my life I thought power, was having power over the other people. True power is having power over ourselves. It's to not lose our temper. It's to not lash out at somebody that we really love. It's not to engage in road rage. I joke so much now, but since I wrote this book, the roads and highways and parking lots of New Jersey are a safer place as a result. It's like, we can react in so many ways without even realizing that we're reacting that way based on our self-image, based on who we think we are. We just think they're a jerk. Now again, I got to emphasize this. Sometimes other people are jerks. Sometimes I'm a jerk. Not that often, but sometimes I am. And so I'm not saying we don't take care of ourselves. It may be appropriate to leave the situation. Get out of the way of the train. You don't want to get hit by the train. It's up to you, it's up to me, to get off those tracks. Get off the tracks. Let the train go by. Let the train hit somebody else. There's so much freedom in that. Or, we may have to go a step further. We may have to get the police involved, or we may have to get a lawyer involved. We may have to do something to take care of ourselves, but we still don't have to see ourselves as victims to do that. Because the minute I see myself as a victim, the minute I launch into that resentment, that anger, I'm giving my power away. And ultimately, I become powerless to change how I feel. Because how I feel is dependent on what you're doing, and I have no control over that. So let's talk about what power is. So it turns out there's only 4 things in life that I have power over. My thoughts, my feelings, my words, and my actions. Those are the 4 things that I have power over in the entire world. All right? Now, we talked last week and the prior weeks, we talked about the relationship between thoughts, feelings, words, and actions. Our thoughts lead to our feelings lead to our words and actions, and our words and actions lead to the outcomes that we experience in life. So if I give away my power at any one of those steps, then guess what? I'm no longer in control of my life. My life is being determined by what I think somebody else is doing to me, or not doing to me, or saying or not saying, or whatever. All right? That's the essence of powerlessness. When I can't decide how I feel about myself, when I can't decide how I feel about another person, that's the ultimate powerlessness. All right? So I have And it's a conscious thing. So this is true power, is to consciously and deliberately choose thoughts, feelings, words, and actions that serve us. All right, we bring some intentionality to it. We bring some consciousness to the choices that we're making in each moment. Now, I want to go back to the book. If you have the book on page 74, so I say true power is the ability to choose and or change our thoughts, feelings, words, and actions. Notice that by consciously choosing these things, we can create the lives that we want. Notice, too, that by not consciously choosing these things, we leave the direction of our lives to chance or fate. Now, there's also 3 points that come up from this definition. Number 1 is, no one but us can choose or change what we think, feel, say, or do. This means other people are powerless over us. It doesn't always feel that way. In fact, it rarely feels that way, especially if it's somebody that we look up to or somebody that we're in a relationship with. It really feels like they're causing us to feel the way we feel. It boggles the mind sometimes to stop and say, wait a second, I get to decide how I respond in this situation. Doesn't matter what they're doing or not doing. Doesn't matter what they're saying or not saying. Number 2 is, we cannot choose or change anyone else's thoughts, feelings, words, or actions. This means we're powerless over other people. Now, this is a big deal because for me, for most of my life, I thought that I caused other people to feel a certain way. I thought I caused other people to react a certain way. Somehow in my mind, I had it that I had power over them. I could change them. I could fix them. I could make them see the light. That's codependency 101. Being codependent is believing that I have the ability to change somebody else, that I can help them see the light, that I can fix their lives, that I can make them act in a certain way so their lives will be better and my life will be better. Never works. Because until they choose that, until they ask for my help, until they choose to make a change in their life, there's nothing I can do for them. Likewise, I don't cause people to be upset or angry. I don't cause people to be happy or joyful. And most of my life, I thought I had that kind of power. And when I realized I don't have that kind of power, the weight of the world came off my shoulders because I no longer had to worry about what somebody else was thinking, feeling, saying, or doing. At least in terms of me being responsible for that. Now again, in relationships, I still have to take care of myself if somebody's acting inappropriately. I have to be aware if I'm acting inappropriately. All right, part of taking responsibility for my actions and my reactions includes making an amends when it's appropriate to do that. If I've done something harmful to somebody else, we talk about that in chapter 6 and 7. But the point is, even if somebody says to me, you make me feel so good. No, that's not true. No, that's not true. I don't make you feel anything. I like being with you. Apparently you like being with me. We have a lot in common. We enjoy each other's time. I feel good when I'm with you, but you don't make me feel good. I think you do, but that's not true. Because the second I say, oh, you make me feel so good, then I've just given up the ability for me to make myself feel good. Now me feeling good is in somebody else's hands, and I have no control over that. So the only four things I have power over are my thoughts, feelings, words, and actions. I'm powerless over other people's thoughts, feelings, words, and actions. And number 3 that comes out of this is my thoughts, feelings, words, and actions are the only 4 things I need power over to create the life that I want. Now, I never got that. I thought, well, I got to get this person to do this, and I got to get that person to do that, and I'm trying to manipulate the situation, and I'm trying to be, charming to one person, and I'm trying to be a jerk to another person, and I'm trying to manipulate. I'm the manipulator. Or another word that was my middle name for a long time was control. Control freak, trying to control other people. Also, I can orchestrate to have the life that I want. All right? It's like, no, you have to do this, and then you have to do that, and then you sit over here, and you pay me this much money, and then you say this about me online on Facebook, and you do this for me, after work. That was how I was going to create the life I wanted, by orchestrating other people, by manipulating, by controlling. And when I see myself as powerless, when we get to chapter 4, I'm going to talk about my 2 problems. Every problem I have in my life stems from one or two core beliefs. The first core belief is that I'm powerless. The second core belief is that I'm unlovable. We'll talk about that in the next chapter. But when I perceive myself that way, when I see myself as powerless, then I have to manipulate, and I have to control, and I have to cajole, and I have to seduce, and I have to charm, and I have to manipulate to create the life that I want. What I'm suggesting is that by consciously and deliberately choosing thoughts, feelings, words, and actions that serve me, that move me in a direction, that's how I really create my life. It's through the choices that I make. And I have to take responsibility for those choices, and sometimes those choices don't work out. In fact, maybe more often than not, those choices don't work out, and there's some negative consequence, or there's some result that I didn't expect or I didn't want. Then I got to make another choice. All right, so that didn't go the way I thought it was going to go. It didn't go the way I wanted it to go. Now what am I going to do? And there was a time in my life, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go get drunk. I'm going to go drink, or I'm going to smoke pot, or I'm going to do something to mood alter so I don't have to deal with my life. I'm going to find a way to avoid feeling powerless. I'm going to find a way to avoid feeling bad about myself, because if things wouldn't work out, and I would blame myself. So I'm suggesting a different way of living life. And you can see in my next slide, we can either be creators or we can be reactors. All right? Consciously choosing our thoughts, feelings, words, and actions means we're a creator. We're creating. Unconsciously choosing from habitual, ingrained, dysfunctional ways of being, that's a reactor. Now, what's interesting is if you look at the words, they're both the exact same word. The only thing we do is we move the C. So notice in reactor, the C is in the middle of the word. When we move it to the front of the word, we become creators. So when we see correctly. All right, I didn't actually make that up. That actually comes from Conversations with God. I think it's book 2 or book 3. But I love that. All right, when we see correctly. So we get the choice. And notice the reactors, they're pointing the finger. Right? The reactor, we're pointing the finger. It's your fault. You did this to me. Say you're sorry. Stop doing that. And that's when I'm trying to control somebody else. That's when I'm trying to manipulate the situation. That's when I'm trying to change somebody else so I could feel better. Maybe it's different for you guys, but that never worked for me. And it created so much unmanageability, so much pain, so much heartache, so much conflict. The more that I take responsibility for my feelings, my thoughts, feelings, words, and actions, the less I expect other people to change so I can feel better, the better my relationships get. I have a relationship with my mother now that is 180 degrees from where it used to be, because I no longer demand that she be a certain way so I could feel good. I no longer demand that she speak to me a certain way or whatever, do certain things. I've let her off the hook. because now I'm responsible for how I feel. Now, I still have to have healthy boundaries with her and everybody else in my life. Again, this is one of the things I talk about in chapter 7, is actually the closer we are to somebody, the closer the relationship, the more we need to have healthy boundaries in that relationship. Like, it's really easy to have boundaries with strangers or casual acquaintances or whatever. But people we see every day, people we're in close relationship with, the closer I am to somebody, the more I need to have healthy boundaries with them. Especially if I think I love them. We're going to talk about love in the next chapter, chapter 4. Chapter 4 is from FEAR to LOVE. But I do strange things when I think I love somebody, and typically what happens is I stop loving myself. And that's not good. Loving another person doesn't mean I stop loving myself, but I didn't know that. And then I was resentful of them because I had stopped loving myself. I had stopped taking care of myself. I had stopped asking for what I wanted or needed. I had stopped, just taking care of myself in that relationship. And because I thought that's what it meant to love somebody else. And again, all kinds of problems, unmanageability, craziness, insanity. It's horrible. So I'm going to take a break in a minute. Let's look at the assignment for tonight, and then we're going to take our break, and when we come back, we'll open it up for sharing. All right, so the assignment for tonight was A, how do you define power? A moment ago, I was describing power. Most of us think of power as having power over something or someone else. I'm saying no, true power is having power over ourselves. B, identify 4 things you have power over, and C, identify at least 4 things you don't have power over. All right, so that's going to be the assignment when we come back. I'm going to take a 5-minute break. I'm going to play the song. All right, if you guys have been here before, you know I play a song. The lyrics are going to be on screen. I urge you to sing along. I have changed. This is after our workshop last week. I've changed the lyrics, so instead of I love my life, I sing I love myself. All right? So we'll see you back here in 5 minutes. All right, we are back, folks. So let me unpin my video here. Who wants to take a stab at the assignment for today? How you define power, what you have power over. Jessica.
Hello.
So
how do I define power? Of course, the way you state it is the way I would like to live it. But similarly, how I defined power was through manipulation as well. Mostly feeling powerless my whole life. Probably up until about 4 years ago. So it's a diligent effort defining what I do have power over. So the 4 things that I have power over are myself, my emotions, my reactions, and my actions. 4 things I don't have power over are other people, circumstances, situations, how other people feel. I don't have power over that. And it took me a long time to figure that out, because I definitely became a codependent person where I just wanted everyone to be happy around me. And even if that meant that I was going to exert all my energy and end up being drained. So, yeah.
I get it. All right, great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's it.
Now I relate, it sounds like you relate to what I had to say. The thing to remember, and I'm just going to speak for myself, I'm not a bad person because I thought that, power meant controlling somebody else's behavior or manipulating situations. The thing that I've come to, for me, is to understand that I didn't know any other way. I didn't have any other tools. I didn't have any other knowledge. Nobody ever told me that, there's another way to relate to people. There's another way to get what I want or need, and there's another way to take care of myself. Now we come from a situation where, as little kids, we really are powerless. If you think about it, especially when we're real little, we're living in a land of giants. I mean, I forget exactly what it was, but if the proportion was correct now, let's say we're 5.5 feet tall, it's equivalent to living in a land with 20-foot tall people. How would you feel, as an adult walking around where there's 20-foot people walking around? There's this innate sense of powerlessness, and we don't have the ability to communicate. We don't understand, what other people are saying. We don't understand what's going on. It creates a lot of fear. It creates a lot of anxiety. It creates neuroses for many of us. And that's what we come into the world with. And then we learn. We watch what other people do, and we watch how, Aunt Betty manipulated this situation, and we watch how mommy controls daddy this way, and so we learn these strategies. But none of it makes me a bad person. And I don't think any of it makes you a bad person if you do that. We're just, we're learning. And I came to a point in my life where I had to admit, that it wasn't working. Living that way was not working. And learning a new way to do it is difficult. It's challenging. I was with, so you guys know I'm a photographer, and about 1.5 years ago, I was in New York City taking photos, and I was actually teaching. I had a student. She was a retired NYC police officer, 25 years in the Bronx, female, she was like this tall, lovely woman, beautiful woman. And so we were driving to a location. I was driving us, and we parked in this spot, and it was a really tight spot. And I pulled into the spot, and I forget where, it might have been like on Madison or something like that. We were going to photograph the Empire State Building. And I squeezed into the spot, and I backed up just to leave us room, and I backed in just the slightest little tap in the car behind me. And there was a guy in that car, and the minute I touched his car, he jumped out of the car. He said, "God damn it, what the fuck is wrong?" He just went off on me. And I got out of the car, and the woman I was with, she got out of the car on the other side. And at one point, I just glanced over at her, and I could see she was ready for a fight. And this is a woman, she told me stuff, man, I couldn't believe the things she's seen, And I realized in that moment I had a choice. And I could either be defensive, and I can either, engage with this person, or I could find another way. And I looked the guy in the eye, and I said, "Gosh, you're right. sorry that I bumped into your car. I apologize. And immediately that disarmed him. Like he didn't know, he was looking for a fight too. And I went back and I made a whole big thing. I went and looked at his car, and then I looked at my car. I said, if there's any damage, just let me know. I'll take care of it. And I had to talk this guy off the cliff because he obviously there was something going on with him that actually, I'm guessing, had nothing to do with this situation. And it turned out, and he eventually backed off and he just went back in his car. He didn't say anything else. And she and I started walking to go take our photos, and she just looked at me and she said, I can't believe you just did that. She goes, you handled that so well. And I said, I'm learning, that what other people do is not about me. I was not responsible for how this guy was feeling. I'm accountable for my behavior, but I'm not responsible for somebody else's feelings. And so part of me being accountable for my behavior was to say, if there's any damage, I will take responsibility for that. But I didn't have to take responsibility for his anger, his upset. See, when I was a kid, when somebody else was angry or upset and they told me it was my fault, like this guy was trying to do, I believed that. I believed it was my fault because I thought I had power over people. I could make them feel bad. I can make them be upset. I can make them be angry. That was never true. Somebody else reacting that way was about them. It wasn't about me. Now, I was, I wasn't always the perfect little angel as a kid, but I don't have that kind of power. I can't make somebody like that guy. I couldn't make him feel the way he was feeling. That was about him. I guarantee you there was something else going on in that guy's life that had nothing to do with that situation, but it happened at that moment. He had no other way to react because he was so caught up in it. And I could in that moment, I could either go to his level and get into a shit storm with him, or I could say, all right, he's upset, got nothing to do with me. I'm willing to be accountable. I'll let him know that, and then I'm going to let it go. And so that's new for me. That was a different way of dealing with a situation like that. And it was interesting to see the outcome, because, he could have had a gun, or whatever. I mean, it could have really been. And it was, again, the woman I was with, it was really interesting to see her reaction. And maybe it was an opportunity for both of us to see that there's another way to handle situations like that. And it all stems to how I see myself in that situation. If I thought I was the bad guy and I was responsible for how he was feeling, I might have reacted differently. And I could have got defensive. Again, my knee-jerk, in a situation like that in the past, my knee-jerk response is defensiveness, because that's all I had as a kid to take care of myself. I didn't have any other tools. I was going to fight back, or I wasn't going to fight back. I was just going to take it and cower and feel bad about myself, and feel guilty and feel shameful because I'm a bad person because I made somebody else upset. So the good news is I don't have to live that way anymore. All right? And I'm going to suggest that none of us have to live that way. So Jessica, that was great. Thank you. Who else? Who else wants to talk about what we have power over, how you define power, what we have power over, what we don't have power over?
Hello.
Oh,
Barbara.
Yes. So what we have power over is, and it actually, almost seems the same as what you're saying, but over our thoughts, especially what we say. We have power over what we say, and then the results of that. A big one is attitude. Have a good attitude. That as soon as your attitude is bad, things are going to go bad. So attitude, we have power over powerlessness. And I have power over, a big thing for me anyway, is to let people talk. Sometimes we think we have to talk, but let them talk and listen. And things really turn out much better. So I'm having power over that. And what I don't have power over is the outcome or people.
Great.
How's that? Okay.
Excellent. Really good. Now remember, the way I'm defining power is the ability to choose. It's the ability to consciously and deliberately choose our thoughts, feelings, words, and actions, to choose our reactions, to stop and say, wait a second, who do I want to be in this situation? That was something else that came up with that guy. It was like, it just flashed through my mind. It was like, who do I want to be in this situation? And that's the ultimate, for me, that's the ultimate expression of our true power. When we decide in that moment who we're going to be, irrespective of what's going on around us, irrespective of what the other person is doing or not doing. All right? As we get further into this chapter, I'm going to talk about the fact that true power means it's actually we're making an arbitrary choice vis-a-vis the external world. We're not choosing based on what somebody else is doing. We're choosing based on who we want to be in that situation.
Right. So you could easily say you have power over your thoughts, feelings, words, actions. You could say it to yourself that way, especially if a situation comes up like that. I have power over this, right?
Well, or just the ability to choose. I have the ability to choose. Now, remember how we defined responsibility. We said responsibility is the ability to respond. That's exactly what we're talking about here. In the next week or two, I'm going to talk about the relationship between power and responsibility, but we're not quite there yet. So it's the ability to consciously choose our thoughts, feelings, words, and actions. And then what we want to do is we want to move from being reactors to creators. When again, if you weren't here earlier, notice it's the same word. Reactor and creator, they're the exact same word. Just in reactor, the C is in the middle of the word. When creator, the C, we move it to the front of the word. So when we see correctly, we move from being reactors to creators. All right, who else? Who else wants to respond to our assignment?
Okay. I think we have the power to think about us before thinking about others. And we can have the power to believe that we deserved to have our goal and choose the life we want and change the way we think to get through it. So, and that's to have the power on our life. And the things we can't have the power is, I think it's the government, the virus we live with, and I have to wear a mask all day to work now, and security glasses. That's awful. It's bad. I don't like it, but I don't have the power to choose that. It's the law, so I have to do it. And I think this is what we don't have the power of, is those things. So that's it. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Lynn. That was great. And it occurred to me, not in relation to specifically what you were saying, Lynn, but just in general, the problem is when I take responsibility, when I exercise my true power, I can't blame anybody else for how my life is going. And that sucks sometimes because I really want to blame everybody else for how my life is going, So I talk about in chapter 4 and chapter 5, I can speak for myself and I could say without a doubt, I had, and at times I still have, it's almost an addiction to seeing myself as a victim of other people's choices and decisions, other people's behavior, whatever. And you write a book like this, and now it's like, oh shit, I can't blame whoever for how I'm feeling, and it's like, it's hard. And again, it's not this, it's, give me 1 second, Jess. So it's not that other people are not responsible for their part in the situation. It's not to say that other people aren't inappropriate or jerks or whatever. All right, we're not making excuses for somebody else's bad behavior. But that still doesn't change how I feel in that situation. It doesn't change how I respond to that situation. I'm still responsible for that. Still responsible for taking care of myself, having healthy boundaries, whatever I need to do to be okay in that situation. Go ahead, Jessica.
Yeah, that's a big one too. It just came to me as you were saying that, and as Lynn was talking. A lot of the time throughout my life, I also would blame the stigma of mental illness as why I couldn't function, or my anxiety as to why I couldn't be present, or my panic attacks were the reason that I couldn't get close to people or go anywhere or travel or experience new things. And so that's another thing, I guess, that I definitely felt powerless to, or felt that I didn't have power over, and I think that I'm not alone when it comes to that, being told we're sick and the stigma of that holding us back from learning how to cope and then learning how to overcome, which we can do. That was a big one.
Great. Good. I get it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure that I've changed very much because I think when I am treated badly, I back off. I think I actually recently realized I'm becoming, that 6-year-old kid with, the big mother who's, she was a very critical and had a lot of meanness in her. And I guess I learned how to just take it and back off, and I still am doing that. And I'm aware of it, and yet sometimes I still, even though I'm aware of it and I know what I should do, sometimes I do it, sometimes I still don't do it. Need a lot of more work. Don't have a whole lot of time. I'm 80 years old, so I don't have a whole lot of time. When you realize all the things, when I look back in my life that I should have, I took a terrible, terrible marriage, the man who did terrible things, and never really spoke up and confronted him. I just took it. And I think that makes me very sad and maybe angry at myself. But I'm trying. I'm still working on it. But we do revert, yes, to the way we felt with, as you said, the big tall people and the powerful people, your parents. So I have a little time yet to work on it.
Great. Thank you, Nancy. Thank you. I appreciate that. I do. And the last chapter of the book, you have the book. The last chapter is forgiveness. And there's no forgiveness that's more important than self-forgiveness. Because there were so many times in my life, even as an adult, when I did just what you said, I didn't stand up for myself because I couldn't. I didn't know how to. And I was afraid. I was afraid if I stood up for myself, what was going to happen? I had a similar situation when I was young, and, I got shut down. If I tried to stand up for myself, I got shut down. So, I try to forgive myself for that. And then I try to do things differently. And like they say, it's one day at a time. You want to say anything else, Nancy?
No, I'm just, as I say, at least I'm aware of it, which I guess it's taken me a long time to realize that that's where I'm coming from. That's how, because something recently, I had somebody in my apartment that stole something from me. I had some workmen here. We were doing things in the building, and I had workmen, and they were here all day, so I was in and out. And it wasn't until a year later that I opened up this drawer that I had a lifetime of coins that I had saved. My parents traveled all over the world. A lifetime of coins. It was empty. This person had literally stolen it and took a bag of mine, a big black bag, which had also a lifetime of art supplies, because I'm an artist, that I used to take to my class all the time. He put it all in that, obviously, because that took another year for me to even want to need that bag. And I finally got the telephone number of the person to talk to. And this of course, this happened now. It's now over 2 years, and I still have not called him to tell him. Now at this point, I keep saying, well, 2.5 years later, how could you do anything about it? But there's a piece of me that still wants him to know. I don't know if this man might not even be working for him anymore. I actually have pictures of him. Oddly enough, I went outside and took, because these guys were working, changing our windows, and I have a picture that I took from across the street of my apartment, and these two men were hanging out the window. So one of them is the one. I have actual pictures, but I don't have a case. I can't prove it. I can't. It could have been someone else, of course, to tell him that nobody has ever been in this room, in 2 years. Just nobody comes in my studio, my den, and except me. So, but I don't have a case. But there's a piece of me that wants him to know that, and I still can't bring myself to call him and tell him that. My entire lifetime collection. It was a terrible, terrible loss to me. I was giving it to my grandson. In fact, I told him once, I said, "You see that drawer? Everything in there is yours." And that's where I had it. Everything, all the coins are in that one drawer. So I'm still feeling, at this point in my life, powerless, and not even, all at this point I want is for this man to know. And I can't bring myself to do that. So I have to, as I say, I have a lot of work to do very quickly.
We're not making excuses for other people's bad behavior. So apparently this person broke the law. This person violated you in the situation. We're not making excuses for any of that. And we still have to decide, like, you have a choice to make. Are you going to let them know? Because just for you do it for you. You're not even doing it for them. It's something that that we do for ourselves. And in a situation like that, if it's appropriate, to let the owner of the company or the building or whatever know. So we can talk more about that if you want, but I get it. I understand. And for me, again, it comes down to, can I forgive myself for that?
Maybe.
Never too late. It's never too late.
Well, that's how, I feel. But, so maybe tomorrow I will call this man.
Listen, you can come to the workshop next week and tell us that you called. Remember, you're doing it for you. So if that's what you need to do for you.
Absolutely. I will at least feel that much better. Not that it didn't happen, but that, yes, that the least I could do now, because it's 2.5 years later, which is, is to let him know.
All right, great. Good job, Nance.
I promise.
Well, do it for you. Don't do it for me. Do it for you.
All right, promise myself.
Good.
I do better when I promise somebody else, though.
You got to do it for yourself. All right, I want to give, we're kind of running down on the clock, so I want to give some other people a chance. But thank you so much, Nancy. I'm so glad you're here tonight. We'll hope to see you next week and hear that you made that call.
Okay.
Dee Dee, you were next. Dee Dee, you still want to say something?
Sure, I'll be quick. Thanks, Peter, and thank you. I empathize with Nancy. There's something about loss and the trigger of loss, and I'm trying to figure out. I've had 3 long time relationships go south on me in the last 12 months, and where the best I could do was just not engage anymore because I just couldn't deal with what was coming at me. And I'm not sure if that means one of my core beliefs might be, I'm a target for bullies or something to that effect, or what, but it's definitely the trigger, the upsetness, the level of upset that I get is definitely very, very large, like what I was just witnessing. And I believe it has to do with loss, and I don't know, but I'm going to get your book. I'm going to race to the chapter on forgiveness because I don't have a lot of time either or energy. I just need some relief. I'm going to leave it at that and keep coming back.
Thank you, Dee Dee. But I suggest reading, the chapters are in order for a reason.
Right.
So you might get more out of chapter 7 if you read chapters 1 through 6 first.
Okay, I got to do the audiobook.
All right, well, I'm still a few weeks away from that.
All right. Well, I'll just keep coming back.
I'm happy to send you paperback.
Appreciate it. I'll look for my order. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Dee Dee. Anybody else? The clock is actually running down, but I want to make sure everybody gets a chance to say anything. So who else? Anybody else want to say anything? What is power? How do you define power? What do you have power over? What are you powerless over?
Peter, I can go be real quick.
Okay, Cynthia, you're up.
I came in really late. I was powerless over other people, places, and things. I don't have control over them. I don't have control over my mother. I don't have control over my husband. I don't have control over the sun rising or setting. I don't have control over the coulda, shoulda, oughta, woulda, if only I had a. Those are all out of my control. But I do have power to choose what goes into my mouth and what goes out of my mouth almost all the time. I have the power to choose how many steps I take in a day, and I have the power to opt for imagination that's positive rather than negative, and I have the power to confront the medical institutions, and I had a wonderful experience today. This is a woohoo where a doctor had told me X, Y, and Z that I did not agree with, I didn't believe was correct, and I really didn't want to take those meds and get those side effects. And I went to a different doctor, paid good money, found a doctor that knew what I know also, and he told me I had no reason to take this. Take a little of this, that's all. Keep doing what you're doing, it's working. Woo-hoo!
Yay!
Woo!
That's
Nancy like that. That was great, Cynthia. Sounds like you took your power back. That was great.
I'll say hi, and I'm sorry I was late, but I had another meeting that just happened. I had no control over, and just to say, I mean, what came to my mind with the topic when I got it from a friend was just that, my power lies in my ability today to have choices. Which you said 100 times in the little time that I've been here, but those were my words, because the power to have the choice, being an addict of sorts, I'm a food addict, is a miracle. because I don't use my drug, I have choices in my life today, and I know I'm powerless over anyone else. I mean, anyone else, anything, places, they say people, places, and things. I really have no power over them. The only person I have power with is me, and it's up to me to make the choices that are gonna, help me. And, fear, I think fear is, I've heard people talk since I've come on, and fear for me is what drives me. I mean, has driven me in the past. And if I can get beyond that, then I'm much more powerful, self-powerful, and I'm working on that little by slow. So I'm sorry I missed the beginning, Peter. What chapter? Just tell me, what chapter did you do in the beginning?
We started chapter 3.
Okay, that's what I thought.
And you can watch, the video should be up, maybe by Friday, the video will be up if you want to watch the first half. You're welcome. And chapter 4 is about fear, F-E-A-R. So we know fear, F-E-A-R, false evidence appearing real, or F everything and run, But what I have found for me about fear is totally dependent on how I see myself. See, when I begin to see myself differently, the fear disappears. That's the thing I have power over, how I see myself, who I think I am in that situation. Now, again, this is simple but not easy because I got 40-something years of seeing myself a certain way, and I have all kinds of experiences that say I'm not safe, I'm not going to be okay, I won't be able to take care of myself. I can tell you all the times that I got, in a problem with a boss or whatever. I have all this proof that I can't take care of myself, and that forms the basis of who I think I am in this moment, and then I react that way. So I talk about, for me, the process of reprogramming on a daily basis, sometimes on an hourly basis, how I see myself. Begin to reprogram that. Doesn't mean I don't take care of myself. Doesn't mean I don't set boundaries. Doesn't mean I don't leave if it gets really bad. This is what I was saying a couple of weeks ago. I said, look, the difference between now and when I was 6 years old was today I could just get in my car and drive away if it gets really bad. I didn't have that option when I was 6 years old. That creates all kinds of anxiety and stress, and it gets repressed, it gets pushed down, and then when we're adults, it comes out at those moments when, we're triggered by a perception of somebody else or ourselves, and it just comes out. So my thing is to undo all of that. So the next time I'm in that situation, it doesn't just come out. That's what this whole thing is about. It's changing how I see myself. The original title of the book was, Who Do You Think You Are? And, again, the reason that question is so important to ask ourselves is because whoever we think we are is exactly who we're going to end up being in life. But again, that's really good news because I can always change that. I can't change the outer circumstances. I can't change other people. I can't change the situation. So this is actually good news. The reason I had to change the title, or chose to change the title, was there was a TV series called Who Do You Think You Are? An NBC TV series, and there was a couple other books. And I couldn't get the trademark. Just so you guys know, last week I got the trademark on Be Bigger Than You Think You Are. So now nobody else can use that in connection with, stuff like this, books and training and workshops and stuff like that. Doesn't hurt that I used to be a trademark attorney, but so that was it.
Peter, I was gonna, not to remind you of that, but that was your thing, trademarks.
That's one of the things I did as a lawyer. Everything that I did, this is so interesting. When I was an attorney, I had all this, it was like, I can't say I hated it, but I didn't love it, But all that stuff that I learned as a lawyer has served me now as a creative person, as a photographer. I get licensing agreements sent to me. I get contracts. I get all kinds of stuff sent to me. And I send it back and it's all marked up in red. You know, change this, change that, you know. And they look at it and they say, who the hell are you? And I say, oh, you didn't read my bio. The point is, everything that we're doing today, if you believe in this kind of thing, can serve us tomorrow. There's some point where we can take what we learned today and use it to our benefit and to the benefit of others at a later time. So that's one of the reasons why the affirmation for today was, if you remember, today's affirmation, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be, and I have the ability to move on when I'm ready. That's trusting that whatever I'm doing right now is for my highest good. Again, I really didn't like being a lawyer. You know, it was, but I can't tell you now how many times it served me and allowed me to serve others. You know, I have other photographers calling me and saying, God, I got a contract. What do I do with this? Or I have friends who are consultants or whatever. Oh, you know, I need to negotiate this point, you know, and so I can help them. So all that stuff I did that I thought was a waste of time or whatever, you know, it actually allows me to have a better life. Anyway, all right, we're going to wrap it up. Anybody, I'm going to play you know what? I'm going to play the song again. This time it's just 3.5 minutes. Sing along, and then we'll come back, and if anybody wants to say anything, we'll wrap it up that way. All right, so stay tuned. All right, I love that you guys are singing along. That's great. Thank you for that. But I did have to mute everybody, but that was great. I think that's it. So we're going to continue on with chapter 3 next week. Anybody want to say anything before we go?
Yeah, you'll probably get mad at me, but everybody should wish you a happy birthday. Peter's birthday's Friday. Happy birthday!
Happy birthday, Peter!
Thank you. My birthday.
Yay, happy birthday.
Actually, you guys want to sing happy birthday to me?
Sure.
Yeah.
Right now? Sure.
Yeah, why not?
Happy birthday
to
you. Happy birthday to you.
Happy
Happy
birthday,
birthday,
Dear
Peter.
Peter.
Happy
Happy
Happy birthday
to
to you.
and many
Woo!
more.
Woohoo! Thank you, guys. That was great. Thank you. Yes, Friday is my birthday. So we'll be here next week. Invite your friends. Tell your friends about it. I got books if people want them. Still working on the audiobook. Stay tuned for that. Anybody else want to say anything before we go? All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Barbara.
Everybody have a good
You're
week.
welcome. I'm glad I did it. Good night, Peter.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you. I've been singing this all day long. All day long.
Good night.
Awesome.
Thank you.
I love that. All right. Good night, guys.
Good night.